We'll have that story next. But first, the fallout continues today from former White House Secretary Scott McClellan's tough-talking new memoir, What Happened. Even though he was quiet as a mouse while a member of President Bush's inner circle, it's clear now that he had plenty to say, none of it flattering regarding the president and his most senior advisors. Among the most scandalous charges, perfect for book sales, by the way, is the administration's handling of the prelude and eventual war in Iraq, making aggression the only option. McClellan claims the president believed his own spin, an assertion he defended this morning on the Today Show.
You seem to stop just short of saying that President Bush and his administration flat out lied.
Well, actually, I say in the book, I say that this was not a deliberate or conscious effort to do so. What happened was that we got caught up in the excesses of the permanent campaign culture in Washington, D.C.
What does that mean when you say that?
What it means is that everything is centered on trying to shape and manipulate the narrative to one's advantage. Each party or each side is trying to do that. That's what Washington has become today. They're trying to manipulate the narrative to their advantage, and that's the way the game's played. It's a battle over power and influence, and how can we win those battles? How can we win over public opinion instead of what it should be more on, which is bipartisan deliberation and compromise? That's become a distant second.
But however you word it, isn't it lying, Scott? Isn't that what they were doing?
The point I make that whether it was or not, it's just as problematic. And you get caught up in trying to sell this war to the American people. Paul Wolfowitz went and said publicly that the rationale that we all agreed on that would be the best selling point for this war was the weapons of mass destruction and obviously the connection to Iraq. And much of that information was based in what could be substantiated.
So is it a lie or not, Scott? Answer her question, please. Joining me now with their thoughts are Leslie Sanchez, Republican analyst and CNN contributor, and Bernard Whitman, Democratic strategist and president of Whitman Strategies. Now, Bernard, I got to say, having watched people on the left bash Scott McClellan as being the dopiest kid in what was considered a dopey class to begin with, now elevate him to an icon, it is pretty ironic. This is all about politics, isn't it?
Well, actually, it confirms what we have suspected for an awfully long time, that the Bush administration has consistently lied, manipulated, misled, and deceived the American people, not just on the war in Iraq, mind you, but on everything from the Valerie Plame affair to Hurricane Katrina. And Americans are sick and tired of it.
I hate to ask this question because it always opens a can of worms, but could you name a lie, please? I mean, weapons of mass destruction, Valerie Plame, you do know it was Richard Armitage who turned her in. Whenever people say there's a lie, maybe you're right. I can never get them to tell me what was a lie.
Look, the lies went from everything from no, we didn't leak it, to yes, there are weapons of mass destruction, to everything's going fine, our response is going incredibly well down in Louisiana. I mean, look, this administration has taken the gotcha politics to a whole new level. They've taken the permanent campaign and distorted it so badly that few Americans can even trust anything that comes out of Washington these days. And I think that's why we've seen tens of millions of Americans flock to Barack Obama and his message of hope, of optimism, and of change in Washington. He wants to end these politics as usual and bring in a new era of civil discourse and telling the truth to the American people.
Look, Bernard, Leslie, I want to pick up, but come on. No one says Barack Obama lied about his uncle liberating camp with the Russian army. He just made a mistake. WMD falls in there. But Leslie, Scott McClellan, turning on the team, it is the #1 news story in this news cycle, that's for sure.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, but let's look at it for what it is. Call a spade a spade. This is a guy without a job who's trying to profit from the sale of a tell-all book. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I have a book, and a lot of these publishers will push them to change, push the envelope as much as they can, and apparently they pushed it far enough that Scott was willing to betray his friends and the person who basically brought him to the dance. That's the unfortunate part. I don't think there's anything shocking or new. The liberal and the left bloggers are going to try to make this and distort it, when the truth was exactly what you just said. In the case of WMD and going to war, we know that those decisions were made based on the information that was available at the time. Everybody and the global community agreed. This is not news.
And we're going to look. And then this is what I don't get. I want to ask both of you this. Tell me something that we didn't know, which is that the intelligence was wrong about weapons of mass destruction, and that Scott McClellan is an unimpressive person. I used to be a PR flack. I would watch him do the White House, press questions. I would almost cringe. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy was a dope then. He's a dope now, isn't he, Bernard?
No, I think think that, you know, it is far from unfortunate when you finally get someone in the Bush inner circle, which prides loyalty more than anything, someone to come out and have the courage to tell the truth to the American people. Look, we all suspected it. We all thought they were a bunch of liars. But now you're actually getting someone who was there at the table admitting to it. I think that the burden of truth and honesty weighed very heavy on Scott McClellan, and I'm glad that finally he had the courage to come out and tell the truth. And you know what, my point is, John McCain talks a lot about the Straight Talk Express, and it's pretty clear that John McCain has been a co-pilot on the BS Express for the last 8 years, and I think the American people see that.
I think that's a lot of like the Democratic talking points. I think the truth is that even Scott's superiors, people like Dan Bartlett, people that were in charge of what he was saying, basically said they disagreed. They didn't know he felt this way. He probably should have stepped out of that role. And the bottom line is, this is a guy who would have been selling life insurance in Austin had the president not given him that opportunity. Let's call it for what it is. And it's really unfortunate that he felt he had to betray, all of his confidences and really the support that he had.
Bernard, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
From this circle. No. And you're talking about this change in Washington. I don't know what this change is. In 2006, the Democrats thought they had this big change. They moved into Congress, and now they have a 16% approval rating because they are ineffective, and it's the same politics as usual.
Here's what I was just saying. Bernard, you used the word courage. And I just don't know how you can possibly say that a guy who happily sucked up a paycheck every week from a friend, President Bush gave Scott McClellan a job for which he was clearly not qualified and kept him there for a long time, helped him out again and again. If it was true that, as you claim, and apparently there are none listed in the book, lies were being told to get us into war in Iraq, how can you say it's courageous to stay there and tell the lies? Wouldn't it be courageous to leave when it mattered? Separate from politics, don't you have a problem with the character issue here when it comes to Scott McClellan?
Look, I'm not going to stand up here and defend Scott McClellan's standing up to the podium and pushing the Bush agenda. My point is, look, I wish he had come clean much earlier. He's done so now, and I think any time someone has the courage to stand up and tell the truth to the American people, that's not unfortunate, that's courageous. Had he done so earlier, I would have applauded him even more so. But we have got to understand that the administration, no matter Democrat or Republican, has a solemn responsibility to tell the truth. And in the Bush White House, the truth is whatever they happen to think on a given day is going to sell their message.
Leslie, Leslie, do you think that Bernard would be praising him if he came out the day after the November election for finally having courage? If this wasn't the lead up to the election, would Democrats and the mainstream media be celebrating the courage of Scott McClellan?
Isn't that like Rumsfeld leaving after the election? I mean, sorry, it's like deja vu. But, nobody's happy. That's the bottom line. I think the timing is suspect. The fact that this is somebody who, who does it 5 years after the fact, and trying to make a state or trying to say he's trying to change the culture in Washington when the people who had the most political capital, being the administration he served, are walking out the door. It's like the last one out, turn off the lights. There's really nobody there to carry that mantle. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and it looks like he's profiting from the sale of a book.
Leslie, Bernard, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it.